World's a better place because you are here to join us. My name is Matt Brown, and I am the host of the Productive Conversations podcast. And we're going to continue with our great tradition of making great content here in the sports world. We, you know, what was it? Beginning of last year, TKO announces the big merger between the UFC and the WWE.
That was
And
big.
the first 2 weekends in April is theirs to own. First, we had our WrestleMania coverage of Productive Conversations, and we're going to follow suit and now cover the other side of TKO and cover UFC 300. So a great time here on Productive Conversations, and we have the best opinion maker in the world of UFC. He is the other producer on the Productive Conversations podcast. Dolo Ren is here on the other side tonight. Dolo, you and I talking UFC. What's going on, brother?
My guy, my brother, what's going on, man? How you
My
been?
my brother Dolo, I've been good. Hanging in there. I mean, you and I talk every day on growing our platform together and this brand. And now I'm very excited to have you back on the other side today and talking all things UFC for their monumental event. So what's up with you?
Nothing much, man. I mean, you're right. We do talk basically every day. So like I
Mm-hmm.
kind of already know what's up with you. I already know how
Right?
you've been. So like, I mean, it's same old, man, same old, just getting by, that finally put out some predictions I did on my channel. So, was had a little editing mess that I didn't even tell you about, a little technical mess, but keeping the ball rolling, been off the grid for a little while, just working, keeping my head down, doing my producer thing. But we here, UFC 300, man. We covered, what was the card we covered last time? 292, right?
Yes, 292
Yeah,
is the last one.
292. Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're back here for their, I guess you'd say their tricentennial, big deal, the 300th edition, the 300th pay-per-view event for UFC. And just as I am a growing MMA fan and trying to learn more about the UFC, is it called an event? Like, just to make sure I don't want to upset
Oh,
anyone. It is
oh
like a
no, no.
UFC event.
Absolutely, absolutely, Matt. You're in good hands. Don't trip, bro. You're in good hands. Yes, it is an event. They basically, I guess, the numbered events are really always kind of a big event. But
Mhm.
the 100s, like you said, the tricentennial, I actually never heard anyone use that word. So kudos. But
You know what it is about being productive here.
absolutely. But
So
yes, man, like
just to
uh
hold your thought if you don't mind, and
mhm.
I have right here. This is the 300th pay-per-view event in UFC. 3 full decades of this great promotion, obviously making MMA the thing it is here in the mainstream. And it's also a celebration of how far the company has come. So, as I show you here, sharing the screen, we have the 300th poster here. I could see Brock Lesnar there. If you
Brock
could,
Lesnar.
who are some of these guys here? And also the
All right.
200th one and 300th, keeping
Brock
it
Lesnar
simple.
again, if you look. Yeah,
There he
Brock
is.
Lesnar was at 200 as well. Yep. And there's actually a fighter. I'll get to these fighters on the posters in a second, but there's actually a fighter named Jim Miller that has fought at 100, got a win at 100, fought at 200, got a win, and he's going to be fighting Bobby Green at UFC 300. So props to Jim Miller, man. He's not a guy that's talked about a lot, but we'll talk about him a little more later. But yeah, man, pretty legendary stuff. So UFC 100, you see Brock Lesnar. When he came to the UFC, that was a big deal. Like honestly, UFC 100, July 11th. Dang, what was that? Like 2008. That was a long time ago. Like UFC 100, that was around the time when I even started getting into like fighting at all. So, you know, but obviously you could see like GSP right next to Brock Lesnar, I believe was GSP and dang, they had Dan Henderson there. They had Michael Bisping there. A lot of big names, man. A lot of big names and a lot of fights you got to catch up on too, Matt. But don't worry, we'll get you caught up to a lot of fights. But yeah,
Excellent.
man, UFC 100 was pretty legendary. They had a guy named John Fitch. He's a fan favorite. But UFC 100, that was I would say that might have been around the time that Chuck Liddell was like maybe retiring. I'm still iffy on that timeline because like I remember UFC 200 vividly, but like
Hmm.
UFC 100, we were still in high school. You know what I mean? We had a lot of other things going on. So, but man, yeah, UFC 100. That's like that roster you saw. A lot of people. What can I compare it to? You could compare it to like old school wrestling,
Hmm.
where a lot of these newer guys like they can never understand how it really was when Stone
Like a
Cold
true
Steve
to
Austin.
a generation gap, if you will.
Yes, a generation gap. It's one of those things. And that, there's some people that revere those guys like around that UFC 100 era. They revere those guys as like the GOATs, like the pioneers and Mount Rushmores. Like GSP's still considered the GOAT. And I'll get into that later. Believe me, I'll get into GSP later. But but yeah, UFC 100, that's like a coveted event right there with like a coveted roster. And Brock Lesnar, when he came into listen, man, like I don't watch a lot of pro wrestling, but what Brock Lesnar was able to do, crazy, crazy. He
Generational
came
athlete
in,
for a reason.
man, generational athlete. That's one way to describe him for sure. Because
So also tell me, Dolo, we have here in 100 in this original generation, and
mhm.
not to cut you off, but I was wondering how that transitions to 200 and how does it compare to 300? And it seems I would assume these big eras of the UFC and what it's grown into. Um, can you tell me how they all compare to each other to get to this point for their 300th event?
Well, I mean that's a good question. So like yeah, UFC 100, that's when I guess you could say around that time era, people still looked at even now today, people do still look at it as a blood sport.
Hmm.
But at that time, there was literally like Nevada, the state of Nevada is is probably one of the only states that like sanctioned MMA fights, specifically the UFC. So around the UFC 100 time, they weren't doing like huge arenas like they do today. They weren't doing Madison Square Garden back then. They weren't doing like the numbers that they're doing now. They didn't have a Conor McGregor that blew up the sport, to international heights. And and this is like before Anderson Silva's reign too. So that's when the Brazilian fans kind of came in and then, but the Brazilian fans have been there from the start
Hmm.
because of, Royce Gracie with the jiu-jitsu and like back then, like way, way in the beginning of the UFC, it was no weight classes. So, the Brazilian fan base was always there. Yeah, it was crazy, nuts. But how they all compare? Like, yeah, so by UFC 200, Jon Jones was a thing. Jon Jones was a thing. Uh, Still considered in many people's eyes the GOAT
Like the true
with
goat.
yeah, basically like in a competitive sense.
I see.
Like when you walked into the octagon and you put skill set to skill set, height to height, reach to reach, and just the actual sport itself, like yeah, people still consider Jon Jones like untouchable. He might still like outside of the cage, he might be the most dangerous man on the planet, other than like soldiers and stuff. If I'm keeping it real, but yeah, by UFC 200, they had bigger names, and Brock Lesnar made a surprise return. That was actually a surprise. People didn't really expect that, and that's where the hate for Ariel Helwani comes from for Dana White. Dana White actually hates Ariel Helwani from UFC 200 and onwards up until this day because Ariel Helwani actually spilled the beans on Brock Lesnar's return for UFC 200 and
Mm.
Dana White just basically was like you're cut from the company. You ruined the surprise. That messed up endorsements. That messed up a lot of things. So there was a lot of drama around UFC 200, and Jon Jones was supposed to fight, but then he got popped for drugs and then for the steroids, and yeah, yeah, there was a lot of drama around 200, but by that point, the sport was becoming way more established,
Hmm.
and it was already evolving. And now that we're at UFC 300, it's kind of bittersweet because it really could have been a better card. It really could have been, and I don't want to complain too much about what we got, like because to be honest, man, like There's a lot of former champions on this card. Like so many former champions. You know, you got Jamal Hill fighting, you got Yuri Prochaska fighting, you got Alex Pereira, that's the current champion. Like those are all in the same weight class right there.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty crazy. And then you got Aljamain Sterling that lost that actually, Sean O'Malley, the big star right now in that weight class and bantamweight. Um, he had the belt before Sean O'Malley. Now he's fighting on the card. Cody Garbrandt had a belt. Davison Figueiredo, he had a belt. Like literally, like Holly Holm, the first girl that knocked out Ronda Rousey. She's here. She's on UFC 300. That's a nice surprise. Like she's got to be a fan favorite. She's not a fan favorite, then I don't know who would be. Like, yeah, there's a
Only for the
lot of
real
former.
ones.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. Like a lot of former champions, people that have touched gold. So many fighters are gonna be here. And apparently at the press conference, every fighter that's fighting at UFC 300 is gonna be at the press conference. So it's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of champion caliber people in that room that day. And it's just we're UFC 300, like by this point, UFC is global now. We just saw Benoit Saint Denis fight Dustin Poirier, and the whole France, all of France loves Benoit Saint Denis. And forgive me if I'm not saying his first name right, but either way, um, we got French fans now. Connor brought the Irish fans. We got the Brazilians. We got the Georgian Spaniards from Ilia Topuria. We got the Nigerians with Israel Adesanya. Well, I'm very upset that he's not on the card, but we'll get to that. Um, man, it could have been, it could have been a better card with given the people that were originally supposed to be there, but with what we got, man, and with where the UFC is at right now, it's just it should be a good card. Like a lot of people didn't like that Pereira and Jamal Hill were headlining, but at this point, it's Pereira is like one of the best fighters that's ever stepped into the octagon in any era. So, just to see him fighting is going to be awesome. Like, this is a star-studded event. A lot more celebrities are involved in the UFC now. We got more, what do you call them, influencers, like we just saw Aiden Ross like spar Sean O'Malley yesterday, and like stupid things like that. The guy Sneeko, the streamer Sneeko was sparring with Sean Strickland. Like so many people from outside of the fight culture are coming into the UFC, and by this moment, like this is the biggest UFC's ever been. So, it's a good thing for MMA, and it's gonna be a really good event, to be honest. Oh,
I
also,
feel that.
also, my bad, my bad. Max Holloway got his floral shorts, y'all. He got his floral shorts. We're all set. Like, yeah, he got his wish. So, UFC's doing a good thing right now. Just wanted to add that in there. Just wanted to add that in there.
I like that. Now, before we go and before going into specific matches, so let me just show you. We have the actual card here as now. Look at this as a whole, Dolo. Here at the
Hmm.
UFC 300 card, right?
Yeah, that's the card. That's what we ultimately got. Yes, we
So,
got. Yep.
Dolo, as a whole, before we go to specific matches, do you feel Dana White did what he had to do to satisfy the fans with this card amongst the injuries you mentioned?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Honestly, I believe he did. With Pereira versus Hill, the problem is, and we'll get into that, but Jamal Hill has been laid off for like a year and a half with an ACL injury. If anybody watches basketball, or literally any other sport, you know how serious the ACL injury is. So it was, I even texted you, Matt, that day where I was like, yo, this is some BS. Like, why they got this headlining as the main event? This is crazy. But I mean, by this point, it's like, who else was Pereira gonna fight? He wasn't gonna fight Adesanya. Like he's already in the next weight class. Um, Adesanya just lost his belt, so like and he was supposed to fight DDP on the card, which was supposed to happen, but DDP didn't want to do it. Dricus Duplessis, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
that's short by DDP. But yeah, like yeah, so Pereira, like they had to put him in there with someone, and Jamal Hill had the belt before, so it's fair enough. Then you got Zhang Weili and Yan Xiaonan. Like when you're talking about women's MMA, those two are like they got to be in the top at least 8. Zhang Weili in the top 3, top 4, uh, maybe top 2 at this point. Because
Yeah.
Joanna Jacek, I can't say her name for the life of me, but she's retired. You know, and Yan Xiaonan, she's like a up and coming person. Like I predicted her fight right last time for 292. I actually predicted her victory last time she was out. So, I like her as a fighter. Um, but it's just cool to see the Chinese, like China's in the house type of thing.
Hmm.
Like it's cool. Like that's another country that's involved in the UFC now that they've been able to bring fans from, and cool thing. Gaethje, Max Holloway, there's a weight discrepancy there, but Max Holloway was okay with it because he's basically fought everybody from like Conor McGregor to Volkanovski, like literally fought everybody. Um, so that's gonna be a banger regardless, no matter how you slice it and dice it. Davison Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt, 2 guys that had belts. They're in like it's like a crossroads fight for them too. Because, depending on who wins, one could go this way and the other could go that way.
Okay.
So yeah, there's honestly gonna be some good fights here. And then Calvin Kattar, he's always a good fighter. Aljamain Sterling, like I mentioned before, like yeah, it's gonna be some fireworks here. There's gonna be some fireworks.
Looking forward to it. Now, one more thing to discuss before we get into the card. You mentioned Jon Jones, obviously a legend in UFC, but he recently got into some trouble a few days ago. So, Dolo, you have right here. Here on a report from NBC News, UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones is arrested based on allegations that he assaulted and threatened to kill a drug testing agent, police say. Dolo, what are your thoughts on this? The best to ever do it in UFC and Jon Jones getting in trouble the week of the big UFC. Excuse me. Dolo, tell me your thoughts on Jon Jones getting in trouble just a week before UFC 300.
He was supposed to be on the card. Like literally, Jon Jones has like literally he's fought like maybe twice since 2020. He's literally fought twice since 2020, bro. And
It's a long
it
time.
are yeah, absolutely. Arguably ducked Francis Ngannou, who has since um fought Tyson Fury and got knocked out by AJ, which I made a video about on my channel. Um like Jon Jones was supposed to fight either Stipe Miocic or he could have defended the belt and gave Tom Aspinall the number 1 ranked heavyweight that's up and coming, the next one in line for the title really. They could have did that fight, but I guess Jon Jones didn't want to, and he's done this before. Like, he was supposed to be a fill-in for Chael Sonnen like a long time ago. No, no, no. He was supposed to fight Chael Sonnen a long time ago before he actually did, but then he denied, then he turned it down, and Dana White was mad about him. He's done this before. Like they'll give Jon Jones offers for fights and he'll just say no to them. And I guess that's how you stay go, right? You kind of play on your own terms. That makes sense. Um, but nah, he's pretty much a disgrace to MMA. I would say for sure. I mean, even Sean Strickland said it to the Schmo the other, like a few weeks ago when the Schmo was interviewing him. Uh, it's a subjective reality. We're talking about, because there's, some things are subjective, right? And that's the GOAT discussion. It is subjective. Because somebody could say Khabib's the GOAT because he never lost, right? Somebody could say GSP's the GOAT because he beat everybody that he fought. Even if he lost to Matt Serra the first time and beat him in a rematch, he beat every single person he fought. Then you could say Conor McGregor is the first person to get 2 belts, and to have a belt in 2 divisions at the same time. That's subjective. But what's not subjective, right? Police records, police camera footage, uh, reports coming from testers that Jon Jones threatened them when they showed up to do their job and collect a sample to test for drugs. Um, what's not subjective is the fact that his wife, after he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, his wife ended up calling the police that same night saying that she needed protection. And when the police came, she had a bloody nose and a bloody mouth and said she didn't want to go near Jon Jones. He needs help. What's not subjective is before all of that, when he did a hit and run on a pregnant girl. And literally, when I say hit and run, he crashed, jumped out the car with money and weed and coke and literally ran. Like Jon Jones is objectively a garbage human being. And I'm standing on my square right now saying it. It's Dolo Ren saying it on the Productive Conversations podcast. Jon Jones is a complete garbage human being. And see this Coke can right here?
Yes, and for those listening, showing a Coke can.
Yes, I'm showing the Coke can. This has a lot of significance to Jon Jones and some of his faults, I guess you could say. Because when he finally did face Chael Sonnen was telling us that he knew secrets about Jon Jones that if we knew,
Mm.
we wouldn't like him. And at their face-off, it was either the weigh-in or the face-off. It was either one of those. Chael Sonnen came, with a Coca-Cola t-shirt, and it said, "Have a Coke" or "Let's enjoy Coke" or something. Now, subliminally he was telling us before anyone even knew, before Jon Jones admitted it on the Joe Rogan show podcast, way before that happened. Chael Sonnen was already telling us who Jon Jones was. Because the MMA communities are tight knit. They know a lot about each other. And yeah, like he's been like someone that's abused drugs, abused alcohol. And now that time has gone by, it's finally catching up to him. And now people see it. And I think UFC 300 happening around this time is actually like, it's kind of poetic if you think about it, because he was supposed to be there. And instead of him fighting, instead of us hearing about him being on the card, we hear about Jon Jones threatening to kill a drug tester. I probably should have said unalive. Threatening to unalive a drug tester. Dang, should have said that before. Um, so yeah, it's kind of poetic when you think about it. And yeah, we didn't need him. We did not need him for 300. I'm glad Jon Jones has reminded us all of how much of a garbage person he is. And when I think about somebody like Jon Jones, it makes me feel so much better about my life.
Hmm.
Because we all have our faults, and we all maybe didn't achieve certain things we wanted in life, but at least we're not Jon Jones.
An
So
example you don't have to learn by or repeat, but it is
mhm,
sad to see. But it's time to move on
absolutely.
to some other things. Let's get to this card once and for all, and the big matches on here. So first match we want to discuss, Mr. Ren. We have Alex Pereira, the light heavyweight champion, taking on Jamal Hill, who people say is the number one lightweight, even though he's been out for a year and a half. Talk to me, Dolo, about this match, the champion versus somebody making a big comeback.
Yeah, and Jamal Hill can capitalize on this as a big comeback. He can make this the biggest comeback ever in UFC history, if we're being honest. If if we feel like his ACL can withstand the the champion caliber kickboxing leg kicks and sweeps that Pereira is going to put on him, if his leg doesn't snap like a twig, yeah, this could be one of the biggest comebacks ever, ever. He's set up for greatness. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna act like Jamal Hill is not set up for greatness right now.
Mhm.
He's kind of set up for an L too. Cause like, they needed a spot to fill in. They needed Pereira to fight somebody. And who else, Jamal Hill says, oh, I'm cleared, I want to fight at UFC 300. I want to be part of history. Put me in there with Pereira. Balls. Like Jamal Hill has cojones, like big balls to, Your first fight coming back, you're fighting a guy like Pereira. And for people that don't know, Alex Pereira used to be a kickboxing champion. He actually he knocked out Adesanya twice before he
Mm-hmm.
came to the UFC. No. He knocked out Adesanya once before the UFC and beat him on the decision. So like he's a lot different than somebody that just walked into an MMA gym and just started learning everything. Like he's been a champion way before the UFC.
Real
And
scrapper, if you will, true fighter.
yeah, Brazil, those Brazilian guys, they call them hands of stone. They don't call them hands of stone for no reason. And and these Brazilian guys have a long history in just the fight game in general. So yeah, but it's you got to kind of question it because like well, I should say that this fight might actually not happen. Jamal Hill could literally, the doctor could not clear him to like before the fight happens. And then just like with UFC 200, we get a DC versus Anderson Silva situation because DC was supposed to fight Jon Jones at UFC 200, but Jon Jones got popped for drugs for steroids, and then DC ended up fighting Anderson Silva. This could happen here. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I already know how this fight is gonna go if or when it happens, but it could very well be the case that this fight gets scrapped and then Pereira fights somebody else. But but to talk about, you know, to talk about Pereira's skill set real quick, he's a guy to give it to you, like he's a guy that literally came into the UFC and won two belts, a belt in two divisions each, in 7 fights in the UFC. Now think of a guy like Tony Ferguson, right? That has like over like dang, I don't know how many fights Tony Ferguson had. He had a 12 fight win streak at 12 fight win streak at one point. He's lost like 7. He's on a 7 losing streak right now. Someone like Tony Ferguson has at least 30 fights and or up to 30 fights and never touched the title. So that just puts in perspective how special Pereira is. But yeah, the guy is like fast with his hands. Pereira is really fast with his hands. He's 6'9", 6 foot 9 inches, 74-inch reach. And yeah, just a hell of a kickboxer. When you saw when he fought Prochaska, who's also on UFC 300 as well, he was kicking his legs out like super easy, super easy. And Prochaska was coming from a layoff too, so that's kind of funny. They're feeding Pereira these guys that are coming off of layoffs, but that are legit contenders. So it's a really interesting situation. But yeah, Pereira's is super strong, super fast, super technical with the striking. But we're now to talk about Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill's he's kind of got it all. He's had about what is it like 12 or 15 fights in a very short span. He's been able to rise up through the rankings in the UFC and touch the belt, touch gold at one point. And he got the belt from the guy that trains with Pereira right now, which could be, which could help him if which is Glover Texiera. That's who Jamal Hill had gotten the belt from before Pereira had it. And I know
Mm-hmm.
it sounds confusing because it is confusing. Like the light heavyweight division has been a mess. But either way, Pereira's champion right now, and Jamal Hill, he he's a guy that's just a hell of a kickboxer himself. He's a guy that has one punch power, like one punch knockout power, and that's something that Pereira he sort of has. He could put your lights out in a punch or two, but Jamal Hill is a special. He's a guy that could just he really has that touch of death with his hands. And for a big guy, he can land kicks like a taekwondo fighter, like to the middle,
Yep.
to the top, to the legs. Like he could kick. He'll be able to strike with Pereira, but in a normal sense. And he's a guy that's developed his game throughout the years. He's got a ground game. He could, if it goes to the ground, he could wrestle with you. He could find positions, jujitsu positions, and get on top and pass guard and do things like that. But it's just not fair, man. Like ultimately, like to be to be fair, it's just not fair. Like, Jamal Hill is fighting one of the best calf and leg kickers that ever entered the UFC. And he's coming off a ACL injury after a year and a half of inactivity. And I I wish I could show you the video, but recently before I got on camera, I saw a video of Jamal Hill meeting Pereira so that he could sign his hoodie. He's like, I know we're about to go to war, but I'm a fan, so I want you to sign my hoodie. Like he's getting knocked out. Like when I saw that video, I'm like, no, 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 no. He's getting knocked out. There's no way that you just ask for an autograph from the man that you're about to go to war with that has the belt. You should like that shouldn't be the mentality that you're coming in with, especially with a fragile ACL. Like, nah. Alex Pereira is gonna win. You can I go for the money line, but if you want to go for greatness, that prop bet you want to add to it, first round knockout.
First round knockout, just going for it right away.
Yeah,
Is that
just
gonna be
like
your
that.
bold hot take? Is this you don't happen to have the odds for that, do you?
No, 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 no. But we could pull it up real quick if you'll give me 1 second. Because
Very, very quick.
I have some parlays, because you know how we do, man. We didn't come to partake. We came to parlay. So we're putting our money on the line with this one. So let me give you the odds real quick, very quickly.
For the first round knockout specifically.
For the first round knockout. Oh, for the first round knockout, I do not know. I do not know, but I could at least tell you the money line. Um, Sorry, hold on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Alex Pereira is a minus 140 for the money line at least.
Okay.
Um, for the first round knockout, I do not know. I do not know. Let me see. I could tell you that his it's actually a plus 135 that Alex Pereira will win by knockout. So not
Mm.
exactly first round. I'm pretty sure there's like a prop bet for that. But yeah, you could just go ahead and if you don't find the first round prop bet, if it's not on your app or whatever you're using, you could just straight up go Alex Pereira by knockout. And that's a plus 135. And I'm very, very confident in it. And I like Jamal Hill. I really do. I really, really do. He's a guy that plays basketball on his off time, and like, I something I can relate to. I like playing ball too. Like, and I like the fight game. So he's a lot like me. He has a podcast. It's funny. Like Jamal Hill's a really cool dude, but he's going to sleep. He should have never took this fight. He should have never took it. I get it though. You want to be part of UFC 300. I get it. You want to go to the party. I get it, but
Hey man, maybe one day you guys will be friends. But moving on
okay.
though, we have the BMF battle. We have the BMF title on the line where the number 2 ranked Max Holloway fighting at 155 is taking on Justin Gaethje, who is a number 2 lightweight. Got that right? Max Holloway, the number 2 featherweight, versus Justin Gaethje, the number 2 lightweight, battling out for the BMF championship. Dolo, who's going to be the champion after this match?
Well, I mean, I guess if you're a BMF, I guess it don't matter the weight, right? I mean, if you're the baddest MFer, I guess it doesn't matter what weight you fight at. So, I mean, if you ask me, that actually is a big factor in this, but whatever. Max Holloway is just one of those guys, man. Like, um, actually, a really, really interesting thing about Max Holloway is that in 30 MMA fights, his career, right, in UFC. Well, I don't know if they were all in UFC, but 30 MMA fights in his whole career in total, never been knocked down.
Not knocked down once, huh?
In 30 fights, 30 sanctioned fights against professional killers, has never been knocked down in a fight. Doesn't mean he's never lost. Conor McGregor beat him in a decision a long time ago. But like and Volk put him to sleep like a few fights ago, to be honest.
Ooh,
But Max Holloway's been around for a very long time. That's the thing. So like
smoking.
this is more the twilight of his career, you know what I mean? And he's still fighting with the best of them. And yeah, never been knocked down in 30 fights. Max has the record for the most significant strikes thrown out of any fighter in the UFC with 3,197 strikes thrown. That includes, when I say strikes, that means punches, elbows, knees, kicks, any one of those four basically. And I guess you could strike with. I mean, Conor McGregor struck Donald Cerrone with a shoulder. So I guess a shoulder could be used as a strike. Uh, but yeah, those four things, like, yeah, 3,000, basically 3,200 strikes. Like that's a lot. Bruce Lee
Th-
said it, not to interrupt you, Matt. I'm sorry. Bruce Lee gave us a great quote. Uh, I don't fear the man that knows 1,000 strikes. I fear the man that has practiced the same strike 1,000 times. It's Max Holloway. But oh my bad. What were you saying? What would you want to ask me?
I was just saying this guy seems like a real scrapper, and it seems maybe his keys of victory is just keep hitting the ice till it explodes, if you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Um,
Hmm.
that's kind of how he fights, man. Max Holloway fights like you know, uh, the guy that Aljamain Sterling is fighting on the card, his name's Calvin Kattar. Max Holloway fought Calvin Kattar before, and in the middle of the fight, he's pacing up Calvin Kattar. He's doing like literally like Roy Jones Jr. type of boxing, and it was one of the best. It's one of my favorite moments in fighting. When Max Holloway is in the middle of the octagon, Calvin Kattar's face is all bloodied up, and Max Holloway saying, "I'm the best boxer in the UFC. I'm the best boxer," like in the middle of the fight. It's one of
Oh.
like just like a really like it brings chills through your body. Like, yeah, like this dude is a bad bad MFer. So regardless, without the belt, he's that regardless. Even for taking a fight against somebody like Justin Gaethje at this weight class is crazy. But Max Holloway, yeah, he's a hell of a fighter. He throws a really nasty spinning liver kick. Could put anybody down with that. He's really a boxer at heart. This fight will not be at the ground. No point. He's submitted some guys before, but like he's not. He's not a ground fighter. He's a guy that's gonna keep it on the feet. He's a Hawaiian. Those Samoan type guys, those are tough guys too. We got some Samoan fans in the UFC too. So, um,
Samoans,
yeah,
the wrestlers, fighters, and football players, huh?
yo, they just have like their culture is kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. The Shui. You ever seen the Shui? You know what that is?
Is that the chant, the war chant they do? Because that's pretty cool.
Oh, they
Forgive me
actually
for
do
not
have a war
missing.
chant too. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But no, the Shui is actually they do this thing in I guess Hawaiian or Samoan culture. They'll take somebody's shoe. They'll ask for your shoe, right?
Hmm.
They'll take your shoe. You give it to them off your foot. They'll take your shoe. They'll take a beer. They'll pour the beer in the shoe and chug it.
The boot and rally. How about that?
Yeah, Tui Tuivasa was a fighter that like brought that to the UFC. Like he made Joe Rogan do it. It was so disgusting. It was so horrible. Like it's such a nasty thing. I mean, I don't want to disrespect their culture. I respect them a lot. But they're hell of a fighters. Like they're just crazy fighters. Like you said, like they're just athletically and physically gifted people. I respect their culture a lot. And that's what Max Holloway's cut from. He's cut from that cloth. But yeah, don't expect this one to go to the ground with Max Holloway. But to talk more about Justin Gaethje. So Justin Gaethje's like, a regular American white guy, I guess. Um, Not sure. I never heard a last name like Gaethje before. Maybe that's like French. Somebody in his family's French. I don't know. But Justin Gaethje, to give you some cool stats on him, uh, he actually knocked out the guy who's number one at lightweight right now. It was Dustin Poirier, who we saw fight recently and got that knockout over Saint Denis. Um, Poirier's fighting for the title now, even though Justin Gaethje knocked out Poirier. And the reason for that is Justin Gaethje was kind of on the same thing with Jamal Hill, where he's like, oh, like it's UFC 300, there's a slot open. Oh, it's for the BMF belt. Sure, I'll take it. But he took that deal. He took the deal to be on UFC 300 before Poirier got the title shot. So if I'm Justin Gaethje right now, I'm kind of tight because like dang, now I'm fighting for the BMF belt when I could have been fighting for the real title, which is cool. BMF belt is cool. It's a belt, but it's not the main title.
Right.
So I would feel a little bit. I'd be kind of mad if I was Justin Gaethje right now. But I guess the BMF belt would ease his worries a little bit. He's a guy, right? He's like a wrestler, predominantly like a boxer, kickboxer, wrestler kind of guy. He's not like a jujitsu guy. He's not because jujitsu is almost like a defensive art when it gets to the ground. You could switch positions and put somebody in a chokehold, like he's very proactive in his fighting. And any ground game he implements is to just basically set up some strikes or like to get on top and ground pound or something. But he's a guy that he's famous for his leg kick. I know Alex Pereira is kind of similar to that, but Justin Gaethje's no kickboxer. I wouldn't really call him a kickboxer. He's just gifted at certain strikes and um the leg kick, the sweeping leg kick is one of his like famous ones. He's thrown them like 50 times in a fight before. It's crazy. He's a guy that comes forward. He likes to shell up and come forward and really just like he'll take some shots and get inside your space so that he could just land a really hard counter. He almost brings like a Mexican kind of style to MMA. Um, Another guy that's scrappy. He has that same spirit as Max Holloway, where they're like, come on, in the middle of a fight, they'll be like, come on, bring it, let's go. Like really like one of those guys that gets your blood pumping. Um, Justin Gaethje's a monster, man. He should be fighting for the title. He's so good, he shouldn't even be fighting Max Holloway that's coming from featherweight. But it is what it is. It's still a really really good fight. And to be honest with you, like I see Justin Gaethje taking this. I see
Okay.
Justin Gaethje taking it, and I'll tell you why. Basically the weight discrepancy. Maybe some people aren't looking at it as such a big thing because Max Holloway had fought Poirier in I guess like the past year or two, before Poirier got knocked out by Gaethje in their rematch. And yeah, like Poirier's at lightweight, and I guess Max Holloway's entering lightweight, so maybe he's gonna stick around at lightweight after this. Who knows? But he went all 5 rounds with Poirier at lightweight, so it says good things about him. But Poirier is not exactly the same fighter as Gaethje, whereas Poirier has a lot of volume, and yes, he has technique and he's good at boxing. And Gaethje doesn't have as much volume, but when he lands hard and he throws counters really quick and really sneaky. You think that you'll have Justin Gaethje hurt, and then he'll just land a bomb on you, and then it's over. Like Justin Gaethje is one of those he's a really good fighter. But yeah, the weight discrepancies is too much. Um, Justin Gaethje's a little bit more talented at like going for shoots and one legs and he has a little bit more of a ground game than I think Max Holloway does. Uh, Poirier described Justin Gaethje as someone that's like thick boned, somebody that's thick boned, and that doesn't really suit well for Max Holloway, who's clearly not thick boned at all. He's like a skeleton. But Justin Gaethje's actually he's before he went to the UFC, there's actually footage of him like I know you know more wrestling moves than I do, like pro wrestling moves. But he literally like he got a knockout by power bombing somebody. Like literally scooped somebody up over his head, slammed him on the ring canvas, and I guess the guy got knocked out that way. Like they
Shoot.
Justin yeah, Gaethje's like a mini
Crazy he was
Hulk.
able to get him through that in the time he did to throw him down, because again, the thing that helps wrestling become a performance, a predetermined, is getting an opponent to actually do that. And it's hard to get somebody. Obviously, if you're in a fight, a choreographed fight, it's easier to put an actual move on someone.
Hmm.
But you're telling me in an actual fight, he was somehow able to get him in the position to do a power bomb without, so much resilience to that, and you know, threw him down like a pack of ice.
Oh man, I'll show you the clip like probably later on later on. But yeah, he actually power bombed a guy twice in he power bombed him twice in that same fight. It was a second power bomb that knocked him out. So that just gives you an example of how explosive and like aggressive Justin Gaethje fights. And Max Holloway is gonna get exactly what he ordered. Um, I believe Justin Gaethje has a BMF belt right now. I believe so. I could be wrong, or it's vacant. Either way, it's been vacant ever since Masvidal retired anyway. But Yeah, Justin Gaethje's gonna take this one. It's gonna be a really good fight. This is gonna be really good for as long as it lasts. But I could see, I could see, if we're going for a prop bet, I could see Max Holloway's
By the way,
corner.
Gaethje has the title right now. He's the
Yes,
defending champion.
Gaethje has the BMF title. Yes, and just to be clear, the BMF title is not like the world title. It's just a really cool belt to have. It just shows that you're a
Yeah.
badass. Um, I could see Max Holloway's corner stopping the fight in the third round. I don't, Max Holloway's never been knocked down in his whole career. Uh, and he very easily could get knocked down by Justin Gaethje's leg kicks because Max Holloway will be coming forward, landing shots on him, and cutting the ring off. Max Holloway is good at cutting the ring off. What that means is basically if someone's like fighting you and they're trying to like move to the side,
Yeah.
you move to the side with them. Like they cha-cha slide, you cha-cha slide with them. And cutting the ring off is a way to make the space in the ring and octagon a lot smaller.
Hmm.
For somebody for example, someone like Floyd Mayweather, if he fought someone that was like that cut the ring good, like Pacquiao, like uh, like somebody that cuts the ring off good, like it's the answer to footwork. It's that answer to footwork. Somebody that's like more elusive, more springy on their feet. Just move left, move lateral, cut them off, meet them where they're going. You know, it's like in the Marines, how they say you aim your shot, like you lead your shot or something like that. It's something like that. But yeah, Justin Gaethje's gonna have some trouble there, and it's gonna make for a good fight. But Gaethje's too strong, too aggressive. Max Holloway is not used to 155. It's gonna be blood. It's gonna be blood, and this I guess was controversial, but I guess it's controversial, but I don't see Max Holloway getting out of the third round, out of his corner in the third round. I think his trainers are gonna stop it. And that's why I see that fight ending, seriously. But if you want to play it safe, just bet the money line. Um, we can check the odds on that too while I'm here. So
Why don't we actually just move on just for timing purposes?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
we have a lightweight battle. Excuse me. We have a big lightweight battle. Charles Oliveira, the number one ranked lightweight in the UFC, taking on Arman Sarukin, the number four ranked lightweight in the division. Big battle between two veterans. Am I right? Tell me what's going to happen with this match.
I wouldn't say Arman Sarukian's a veteran. He's like nine fights into the UFC. I'd say about 9 fights into the UFC, but his record is obviously more than that. Charles
Mm.
Oliveira, I would consider him a young veteran. He's and his Charles Oliveira, right? He's had 34 wins, 34 victories. 31 of those victories have been by finish. So that's either a submission or a knockout. And like, yeah, man, like, and what makes it even more interesting is that Arman Sarukian hasn't been finished in 9 years. So this is like an unstoppable force meeting a immovable object kind of thing. And Arman Sarukian's ranked number 4 at lightweight. This is another lightweight fight. Ranked number 4. Oliveira is ranked number 1. And I said Gaethje was ranked number 1 before. Gaethje's actually ranked number 2, and Oliveira is ranked number 1. Only reason Oliveira is not fighting Islam is because he lost before them. So yeah, Charles Oliveira is my favorite fighter. He's one of my favorite fighters. Uh, like he's a Brazilian dude. Like he's got like a boxing jiu-jitsu kind of mix to him, and really strong right hand. Very very talented with the jiu-jitsu, and yeah.
Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, my bad, my bad. Okay, cool, cool. So yeah, Charles Oliveira, like he's in his last 15 victories, 14 of them have been finishes. So this is a guy that's really strong. Uh, a guy that when it goes to the ground, Arman Sarukian's, I don't think he's gonna be able to compete, but we'll get to that. And yeah, Charles Oliveira is a dog, man. He's a dog. Uh, I'm glad he was able to get a spot in a UFC 300. It's really cool to see him fight a UFC 300. But Arman Sarukian, he's a up and coming fighter, so this is a good fight. You know, he's ranked number 4. Oliveira's number 1, and yeah, this is gonna be a good fight, man. Because you know, like I've said on this show before about Charles Oliveira, is that you know he's a guy that would take it and then bring it back to you. He's really his fights are like drama shows where you think Oliveira's done and then he's not. He comes back and does something crazy, and yeah, like it almost never fails. It
Do
almost
you
never
feel this
fails.
would be a significant upset if Oliveira takes this loss?
See, you already know where I'm leading with this. You already know where I'm leading with this. Yeah, like Arman Sarukian, if he beats Oliveira, it would be quite an upset. Arman Sarukian, he himself, I'd call him like he's like if Colby Covington and Cody Garbrandt did the fusion dance, like fusion, like
Yeah, from Dragon
he'd
Ball Z.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Akira Toriyama, RIP. Um, yeah, Arman Sarukian, he's an Armenian Russian. Everybody knows how tough Russians are. If you know like wrestling, the wrestling scene, and boxing scenes and like just fighting in general, these Russian dudes do not play when it comes to this game, man. They do not play. Um, so he's coming to win. Arman Sarukian is coming to win, and he was actually talking some crap about Charles Oliveira before, but yeah, Arman Sarukian, he's a guy that like like he's a striker just in general, just a very explosive striker. And if he gets it to the ground, yeah, he's been able to do like, you know, chokes before, but like he's the guy that's trying to get on top of you and ground pound you and
Mm-hmm.
really just dominate you that way. So Arman Sarukian is a young guy that's coming up in the rankings and he's hungry. You know, that's one thing that I think is going to make this a good fight. Like Dana White did a great job at putting these fights. Like he knew that regardless of what people's opinions were, these were going to be bangers. And this one's going to be a banger. Um, but the only problem with Arman Sarukian is that he doesn't have the ground game or the experience, or I believe even like the IQ that Oliveira has, you know?
Really?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Oliveira's he's a young guy, but he's had a hell of a lot of fights in the UFC. Um, he has some like cool statistic too. Um, yeah, he actually holds the record for the most finishes in the UFC with 20 finishes. He has 20 finishes in the UFC. So that's the record right there. The thing is, I believe that, you know, with Arman Sarukian style, he's gonna make it like the first round or two is gonna be real back and forth. You know, Charles Oliveira is known for taking some hits and getting dropped and looking like he's about to get, you know, put away or
Oh
choked
shoot.
out. Yeah, he's a drama. Yeah, like he's what Triple G would call a drama show. Um, and yeah, but the thing is, if it gets to the ground where I feel like Sarukian wants it to go, he's gonna want it to go there so that he could just put his best on him, you know, the ground and pound and just where he can go nowhere, like, and just put him away and get the victory. But the problem is Oliveira is gonna get on the ground, and with these jujitsu guys, these guys are like cobras. These guys are like snakes. Like they could just wiggle and slither their way around you, and then all of a sudden, then before you know it, you get choked out like Justin Gaethje did, you know, when he fought Charles Oliveira. So, and the
And you
funny
don't
thing
want to
about
wind up
that,
on the other side of that.
no.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Gaethje actually said before that Charles Oliveira, before their fight, he was like, Charles Oliveira is not gonna choke me out. I don't quit. I don't tap out. That's like a jiu-jitsu thing. They have a real pride about not tapping out. And it's like the stupidest thing, you know. Obviously, I respect jujitsu, but it's like, come on, bro. Like, if you're gonna don't go to sleep on purpose. Like, just swallow your pride and tap out, you know. But either way, Oliveira is gonna get Arman Sarukian. In my opinion, I feel like I could see in the third round, you know, after a hellish first 2 rounds, I could see Oliveira wrapping him up on the ground. I could see him wrapping him up on the ground and, you know, teaching this youngin something new, you know. And yeah, I got Oliveira for the win there, not just because he's my favorite fighter, but because he's a hell of a fighter. And Arman Tsarukyan is just too green. He's too green right now. So that's how that's gonna go. Prop bet, third round submission, or just Oliveira by submission.
I bet Oliveira by submission. We will keep that in mind. And some of the extra fights that are taking place on the card that's worth discussing. Sorry, that's worth discussing. Why don't
Yes,
we
sir.
first talk about Zhang Weili versus Yan Jianan, the battle between the two strong women, both from the country of China. Zhang versus Yan. Tell me what's going on. I guess rhyme intended.
Yeah, right. That did rhyme. Like, honestly, I'm obviously not gonna get political or nothing, but it's gonna be interesting if Trump is in the building and then these two are like, and then the Chinese national anthem is playing. Are people gonna boo? Is Sean Strickland gonna like? I'm just kidding. I'm just kind of kidding, honestly. But like, it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out because I think last time Zhang Weili was out there, I think every time she goes out there, she like people from her country like come and support big time. So it's gonna be
She's a big
you're gonna
deal.
see, yeah. Zhang Weili's a big deal, and she's one of she's not my favorite MMA fighter, women's MMA fighter, but she's one of them. Um,
Okay.
Yan Xiaonan is a girl that's coming up in the game. Like she's not as she's not as like I guess talented as Zhang Weili is. Zhang Weili is like a little firecracker. Like she's the type to throw head kicks like
True.
jabs. She could throw like the way I just could throw this arm out. That's how she's throwing out a kick. Like really tough fighter. Like and spars with men. She's a real deal. Zhang Weili's a hell of a fighter. She's had legendary fights with Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Oh.
Um, She's had, legendary fights with Rose Namajunas, like two of them actually. But yeah, like Zhang Weili's one of the women's goats, to be honest with you. And Yan Xiaonan is not quite there. But it's interesting that they're both from the same country and they're both women. So that's another thing of UFC 300. That's another big thing. Yes, UFC 200 uh had Misha Tate fighting Amanda Nunes, and Amanda Nunes being the one that like retired Ronda Rousey ultimately.
Yeah.
Um, but this is a little different because this is like another country thing. This is like two women from another country. So this is like showing, love to the women and showing love, across seas. Like it's this fight in general just shows how far the UFC has come. And I mean, aside from what it means or what it represents, because that's a big deal in itself. But the fight itself is gonna be awesome. Like Yan Jianan is a good boxer. Like and like she's a good boxer. She's a good striker. She has a decent game all around, to be honest. And Zhang Weili is just probably the top three best women strikers ever. So I I don't really know how it's gonna go, but I did want to mention the importance of this fight and what it means to the company, what it means to the brand, and what it means to the fans. Um, but if you were to like force me to pick, I mean, Yan Jianan has the reach. I think she's coming up in the game. Zhang
Mhm.
Weili's had a little bit of mileage on her, and as good as I just talked about her right now, you know, I this could be something that's like it's Yan Jianan's time. Um, I think she studies her opponents a lot, off season when she's not, or when she's in training camp and stuff. Like, she beat Jessica Andrade, so Jessica
Yeah, you're
Andrade
saying
is
she's
another.
she's one of the most prepared in this.
Yes, yes. I think she's more hungry. Zhang Weili is basically she did it. Zhang Weili did it. If you're a women's MMA fighter, you did it. You hit the pinnacle. Yan Jianan's still hungry. And I think she's gonna want to prove something like she did against Jessica Andrade. And yeah, I see Yan Janan getting this victory. But ultimately it just means so much for like the growth of the sport and the evolution of the sport. That's really the big thing to take away from this fight. It's gonna be a good one.
I feel that. And moving on to some other one of these bouts, we have Division Figueiredo and Cody
Yeah,
Garbrandt. Or why don't you just
Davis.
announce this?
No, you're good, you're good, you're good. Davison,
Division Figueiredo and Cody Garbrander.
close, good, close enough. But I'll tweak
Hmm.
it a little bit for you. Like it's spelled really weird, but it's literally just Davison. It's spelled weird, but it said Davison. Yeah, I think he's Brazilian.
A
Yeah,
lot of
just spelled
Brazilians
weird.
on this card I see.
Yeah, yeah, Brazilians. Yeah, they're in the house too. Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, there actually is a good amount of them. Because Pereira himself is Brazilian. But um, Davison Figueiredo is an awesome fighter, man. Like if you see him, he has like a red kind of hair dye streak across his head,
Mm-hmm.
and one of his nicknames is the God of War because Kratos, like see what people don't know is that me and Matt talk a lot and we share a lot among us, and
That's
and
right.
I'm a
That's
big
my
God of
guy.
War fan. Oh, absolutely, you're my brother.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big God of War fan. He knows that. So I've sent him videos of Kratos and cutscenes from the video games and like
That meme of him jumping into a pool is hilarious.
yeah, man, and Davison Figueiredo has that Kratos, thing going on. I believe it's because he's a fan. I never really got to the bottom of the origin of why he paints his hair red in that little section of his head. Either way, God of War, Kratos reference, I can dig it. Um, and he fights like Conor McGregor. He has like a karate stance. Karate guys fight like a on guard, like you see those like what's that sport called with the javelin, like, where they have the swords that go on guard, like you know what I'm talking
Fencing.
about? Fencing, yes. He fights like a fencer. Like his stance is like a fencer. And on a quick note right there, like that's something that a lot of fighters do. They'll look into history and look at like soldiers from the past and warriors from the past and copy little things. Like there's a boxer named Teofimo Lopez that copied like a Spartan thing where he blocks,
Facts.
yeah, like it's one of those like I can go into it forever. But yeah, Figueiredo has like a karate stance, and he's a really good counter fighter, really good counter puncher, um, and really exciting fighter. He's good everywhere, really good at jujitsu, um, and he's coming to fight. The thing about Cody Garbrandt too, and I'm gonna get to Cody Garbrandt, but the thing that both of these fighters have in common is that they're at a crossroads. And UFC 300 was like a perfect event for them to come at a crossroads, like because they both had belts before, they're both aggressive guys, they've both they both are trying to get back into the spotlight, and it's gonna be some fireworks here too. Like Cody Garbrandt is a guy like he fought TJ Dillashaw before. He had like one of the best performances ever in UFC when he fought Dominic Cruz. And yeah, Cody Garbrandt's a really good guy. He's a really good fighter. Really explosive, mostly a boxer, but he'll wrestle with you, but he's not big on wrestling. He's a guy that's trying to knock you out with the hands, which is something I can respect. Um almost kind of explosive like Zhang Weili, to be honest. It's kind of funny I'm comparing him to Zhang Weili, but like they're explosive in that sense where they're coming forward with their strikes and trying to put you out and like a um see, it's cool to see them two at a crossroads, but Cody Garbrandt's too chinny. When you say chinny in fighting, that means like you don't take punches very well. So like you can if you're chinny, if someone calls you chinny, that means you got a glass jaw, like you could probably get knocked out real easy. So that's gonna be the problem here. Cody Garbrandt has got a bit of a glass jaw, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, and we could go you can go for hours on theories of what gives somebody a good chin or not. It's another discussion. But yeah, Davison Figueiredo's not as chinny, and he's also more talented in other areas of the fight game. Because when you're in MMA, you gotta expect, like they say in boxing, when you hop in the shower, you gotta expect to get wet. When you're in MMA, you gotta expect it to at some point get to the ground. You're gonna meet a wrestler from Russia that's been wrestling bears since he was a child. You're gonna meet a Brazilian kid that's been doing jujitsu since he was like 7 years old. You're probably gonna meet a Muay Thai fighter that's been kicking trees with his bare legs since he was like 5. You know, the UFC is global now. The UFC is global now. Cody Garbrandt is fighting a guy that's more skilled, more better all around game, and this one could probably go to distance. But I got Davison Figueiredo, and again, not a bias because I'm a God of War fan, but he's just a better fighter in this one, and it's another good fight that. This is one of the better low key fights that Dana White put on his card. I'm looking forward to this one a lot. I got Davison Figueiredo winning.
Great stuff. And the last match to discuss for today, Aljamain Sterling is taking on Calvin Katard.
Yeah,
Talk to me about the featherweight bout in this one.
yeah, Aljamain Sterling, Funkmaster. Yeah, the Funkmaster man, like he had the belt before Sean O'Malley. You know, I talked about him a lot on one of the episodes I did like following up the one we did. Uh yeah, I've previously talked about him on this podcast. Uh a guy that's like, a lot of people don't like him, but he was one of the better title holders at bantamweight. He really was. He beat Peter Yan. He beat Henry Cejudo. He beat TJ Dillashaw. You know, he it's like three solid fighters right there, and then before that he was beating good fighters. So yeah, it's cool to see Aljamain there. Just a really good fighter. Really good Jamaican dude. I think he's from New Jersey too. So, it's a cool thing right there. Or he's at least from the East Coast for sure. Oh, one thing. All right, I forgot to say, Alex Pereira lives in Bethel. I don't know if you knew that.
Bethel,
I just,
Connecticut, does he really?
yeah, yeah.
Smart
I didn't
man.
mention that before because when they announce his fights, they go, "Oh, from Brazil, but fighting out of Bethel, Connecticut." Is funny, but yeah. So yeah, Aljamain's an East Coast guy. And the guy he's fighting is Calvin Kattar. Sorry. Uh, just a really good guy. One of the better boxers in the UFC. When he fought Max Holloway, Max Holloway proved to be a little bit better than him, but that's Max Holloway. And that's no really shame in, losing to him. But it's another banger, man. This card is full of bangers, and this is another one. Uh I see Aljamain wants to get the title back, but Calvin Kattar is hungry. He's good on the feet, he's good with the strikes, very good boxer. I could see him putting it on Aljamain, to be honest. And like dang, I don't want to go against Aljamain because I think he's more talented than Calvin Kattar. But I think, we just saw Aljamain get knocked out pretty easy by Sean O'Malley. And if Calvin Kattar is half the boxer that we know him as, then I think he'll get into a position to land some really good shots on him too. So I'm going with the upset that I'm kind of not even too iffy on. That's why I didn't make it one of my main predictions. I'm a little iffy on this fight. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd like to see Calvin Kattar take it. I'm a boxing fan, so I gotta take the boxer in this one, man. I gotta take the boxer. So that's another fight to look forward to. To everyone that's gonna watch the card, yeah, look forward to that fight and a Cody Garbrandt and Davison Figueiredo fight as well.
Oh man. Dolo knows what's good as always, bro. Listen, Dolo, I think we really hit the nail on the head with this. But do you have any final thoughts you want to give on UFC 300? I understand the card is a bit underwhelming for what it can be, especially for this type of anniversary, but it's still a big deal. They're taking place in Vegas. The sport's growing. There's some big rumors coming up in the future. Where are we going with this? And how do you feel about the card ultimately after breaking it down and seeing the future of the promotion?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the rumor thing too, because there's a rumor, right, that after the Gaethje and Max Holloway fight, whatever the outcome of that is, regardless of the outcome, after that fight, which is I believe the co-main event, um, they're gonna show a preview. The rumor is that they're gonna show a preview of Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler,
Oh,
and Conor McGregor's return, man. And probably some other fights that they've probably kept under wraps. I have no idea, but that's like the big rumor right there that they're gonna promote Conor McGregor's return at UFC 300. Uh, yeah, that's gonna be a cool thing. Yeah, like it's easy to get kind of long-winded with this kind of stuff because there's so much history behind these kind of events when it comes to UFC. Um, it could be a dud. It could be a dud, but I don't think so. The way it's set up, I can see what Dana White did. He set this up to where like no matter what happens, there's fireworks. And the original UFC card for 300 was supposed to be it was supposed to be Conor McGregor versus Chandler. It was supposed to be Adesanya versus Pereira, which would have been awesome. That would have been the third fight. That would have been so awesome. But it's okay. Um uh what else, man? And you showed it before too. I think you showed it on the screen before too, but there was just so many other fights I can't even remember. Nate Diaz was supposed to come back. Nick Diaz was supposed to come back as well. um yeah, Israel Adesanya. No. Islam Makhachev was supposed to fight Leon Edwards for Leon Edwards strap at welterweight. That would have been insane. That would have been really crazy. uh but some of these are just gonna happen. Conor McGregor was in the middle of filming Roadhouse. He couldn't do it because of Roadhouse. Uh, Adesanya didn't fight because Dricus Du Plessis said no because Dricus Du Plessis got kind of beat up last time he fought. He needs to recover still. To be real, um, Sean Strickland could have been in this card. That would have been awesome to see. But yeah, like and then Jon Jones, well, we talked about Jon Jones. He was if man, what Dana White had rumoredly planned before we got the official card that we got now was going to be probably the greatest card ever in history. If Jon Jones, that would have been like the icing on the cake to see him fight. But, Jon Jones did a great job at reminding us all how horrible he is as a human being. So kind of better that he didn't taint this event with his presence. Um, man, I hope it's one of the pay-per-views. I'm buying this pay-per-view, and I don't buy a lot of pay-per-views, so that should say a lot. Uh, I think this is something if you're a new MMA fan, if you're new to the sport, you gotta watch this. If you're new to the sport, you have to watch this event. And regardless, it's gonna be a lot of fireworks. There's gonna be some blood and knockouts. So that's all we can really ask for. And you know, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it
Dolo,
overall.
it's gonna be real special, bro, and we're gonna take every step of the way to enjoy it. But you killed it as always. Great job breaking it down for us. Check out Dolo's other channel at Dolo Ren on YouTube. That's correct, right?
Yeah, Dolo around on YouTube. Yep, yep.
At Dolo Ren for more exclusive content with all UFC, boxing, and all MMA. And keep checking him out on here for productive conversations, as he's an important part as one of the other producers here. But great work, Dolo. Let's enjoy UFC 300. Let's see where this goes. Let's definitely check back in very, very soon, especially when we have a hotter card too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And don't make any mistake. This is gonna be a hell of a card too. But yeah, well, there's a lot more in the future for UFC, especially with the merger with TKO, like you mentioned. Uh, yo, Roman,
Ha!
what's up, man? Brock did it. Brock did it. What's up, Roman? Come on,
The tribal
Cody.
chief. You think he could, you think they got the skills?
Bro, you know me. I don't watch a lot of pro wrestling or any at all. But if Roman Reigns came to the UFC, I'm fully supporting that. I want to see him. Hey, Brock Lesnar won a belt. Brock
Yeah,
Lesnar won
right.
a belt. So it's not impossible. You can come over here and do something. Let's get it. Come on.
Speaking into existence, we acknowledge a tribal chief to become
That'd
a dual threat, if you will. But
be awesome.
looking forward to it, Dolo. You're the man, and we're gonna see you really, really soon. Check out Dolo Ren at Dolo Ren on all social media platforms.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you can expect more video essays. Oh, sorry. You can expect more video essays on the Productive Conversations podcast too. I got some more heat coming for everyone. So, more people to get at, I'm probably gonna make a video like in support of Floyd Mayweather since I kind of badmouthed them in the other video. And thank you for the support on that video, everyone that watched that and commented. Thank you for it. Thank you very much for it. Like we're very grateful for it. And yeah, it's always a good time with you, Matt. And we're always gonna be in cahoots, man. We're always gonna give them content like how we usually do.
Amen to that. All right, Dolo. We'll see you soon. Enjoy UFC 300 this Saturday on all pay-per-view platforms. Peace.